Listen to me. If there was a wise man who would ever think of this, they would say in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. For I am the man himself.
Hello, what is going on and how y'all doing all tonight? Happy early New Year to you all, as it's still December 30th when I'm recording this, but this will be uploaded probably New Year's Eve. But this is the Club of the Man 1993. Catch up on some more baseball news. As tonight, we're going to look at some managerial transactions. We had several teams have some change in transactions as far as managers go that I'm going to briefly talk about here. Not every single person, because some of them I don't know much about, but a few of them I know a little bit about, to at least mention a little bit about them. But let's get roll right in there with these managerial transactions. First piece of news I got here, the Angels parted ways with Phil Nevin after just a year and a half as manager for the Angels. They announced this immediately at the end of the 2023 season. He had a one-year contract and it was expiring, and they chose not to move forward with him as manager, as of course the Angels have gone through some constant, back and forth throughout the years. He did, of course, take over for Joe Maddon during the 2022 season. Did well enough to get the interim tag removed from him, but unfortunately, though, either they seemed to contend for a while. The second half of the year did kind of fall off. And it definitely will be a rebuilding year for the Angels in 2024 probably, as they haven't really signed any big names yet. But of course they lost Ohtani. Whoops, spoiler alert, gotta talk about that in a separate video. And as well about some other names. But instead, to replace him though, is hopefully it will, start off, some type of buzz though. They signed former Rangers manager Ron Washington as their brand new manager on November the 8th. He signed a 2-year deal, and Washington, who will be 72 years old in April, has had some, he's had some, experience in like the rebuilding eras for some managers, as for a few times. Of course, mostly he's best known with the Rangers. He, of course, reached the playoffs and got to the World Series with the Rangers in 2010 and 2011. Of course, they didn't win the World Series but they just did this past year under Bruce Bochy. But again, he still had a very, very strong run until, of course, later on. He then, of course, would go around. He was with Atlanta working as a coach this past year as well. That would be an interesting fit to see, how he does. Of course, there were other, options they considered, like Benji Gill, Darren Erstad, Torrey Hunter, Tim Salmon, Ron Renegade, a few other former names as well in there. Again, it's going to be definitely some rebuilding time, but again, Ron Washington has that experience with rebuilding clubs, so maybe it could be a benefit for the Angels in the long run and kind of get out of their little skids they've always seemed to be in. The Giants, they chose to fire Gabe Kapler right at the end of the season. I believe he just recently got hired as an assistant general manager for the Miami Marlins, though, as well. They, of course, made, he had a few splashes with the Giants. It was his 4th season, but of course he was named manager of the year in 2021 when the Giants had a surprising season. He signed an extension through 2024, but since then the Giants had gone 159 and 162 since 2021. Of course, they were disappointing as well, and they just felt it was time to move forward with someone else. So they took quite a gamble And who did they grab? An existing manager, Bob Melvin, who was with the Padres. The Giants grabbed him. Could be some serious business there for these clubs. And this is not the only one that seemingly sometimes grab managers. Well, this other club didn't grab a manager on an existing team. His contract expired, and he was looking at other options. But there's basically been another manager who basically lost their job because they decided to grab somebody else. But Bob Melvin, he was sold to the Padres, and the Giants grabbed him, and he chose to move over with them. Of course, Melvin, is also a former manager as well of the Oakland Athletics, who's had his success there as well. So he definitely knows how to manage, the struggling teams, but he also knows how to make a winning team as well. So that is definitely a great move there for the Giants. Who did the Padres get, though, to replace him? Former Cardinals manager, Mike Shildt. Now, when we get to transactions, the Padres did make a nice signing, but they also did make a big trade. I'm kind of worried about the Padres heading into 2024. Again, within the past year or two, I've had definitely very high hopes for them. Unfortunately, though, they're starting to lose some names. So they're starting to get in a little bit of trouble. Could Mike Shildt maybe at least help with the pieces that are still there to still keep them afloat and get them contending? Because they were basically like an average team in 2023, when I expect them to be dominating with the lineup they had. Again, the pitching staff, though, is definitely getting really shaken up, though, for the Padres. But with the experience that Shildt has with the Cardinals having success, maybe he can definitely turn things around for the Padres. We shall see. The Mets are next. They chose to part ways with Buck Showalter as well as manager. After a 101-win season in 2022, they unfortunately slumped as the Mets have been inconsistently. And then, of course, the Mets have... sorry, got a little tired there. Moved on to Yankees bench coach Carlos Mendoza as their new manager. We'll see, of course, if Buck Showalter, definitely not this season, but eventually maybe Showalter could get interest from other teams, as he, of course, is a successful manager. He has definitely done some good for sure. He got the Mets to the playoffs last year. He definitely had a successful run as the Orioles skipper, former Yankee skipper. Although, I should point out, Buck Showalter was the last Yankees manager to lead the Yankees to a losing season. Back in 1992, when the Yankees went 76-86 under Buck Showalter. So again, it's been a while. Of course, though, he's had... of course, this could be his last run as manager. You never know. We thought it was Bruce Bochy's, and he came out and got signed by the Rangers, and he chose to come back, and look what he did. But we'll see. We'll see what he does for sure. Then next we got longtime Red Sox and, of course, Guardians/Indians manager Terry Francona, though, has decided to retire from baseball after a very long and successful run. He definitely gave the Indians some good runs in the playoffs as well, though, because I believe he was their manager in 2016, I believe, whatever. Whatever. The Indians contended against the Cubs in the World Series. Very fun series, especially that Game 7, of course, they had as well. So yeah, he's definitely, I would throw him into a Hall of Fame, voting for sure if need be. He's definitely had a great run. He also had a couple World Series victories with the Red Sox as well. Of course, as we all know, he did bring the Red Sox their first World Series in almost a decade, almost a century. In 2004, especially when they had that big comeback after being down 3-0 to the Yankees in the ALCS. But yeah, congratulations on a great career. In his place is recently retired catcher Stephen Vogt, who spent time as like a bullpen and specialist coach with the Mariners this past season after he retired after the 2022 season. But he's going to get his first step as skipper with the Cleveland Guardians as he's hired as their new manager. So congratulations to him as well. One of the biggest transaction moves, besides next to Bob Melvin, of course, going from the Padres to the Giants. Craig Counsell has left the Brewers. He did not re-sign with them, and he signed. And on the day he signed, it was posted that Craig Counsell has signed with a new team, but they already had a manager. This is probably the second time in the last 10 or 20 years that the Cubs have done this, that they've gotten a new manager while the other one they had was still under contract. The first time was back in 2015, before the 2015 season, I would say, when they hired Joe Maddon when he was available, and he replaced Rick Renteria, who I thought was going to be a good manager for the Cubs as well, Rick Renteria, but Joe Maddon was free. They went after him right when the Cubs were about to strike hot with the iron. And, of course, they did. They were definitely one of the toughest teams I've ever seen for a couple of years now in the mid-2010s. But this time, of course, when they, of course, fell off a little bit and then they signed David Ross as their manager, I'm like, okay, a guy who had really good chemistry with them, maybe that he could work out for sure as a manager. Not quite. They were starting to get back on track with the names they signed last offseason. And then now they're even going even bigger now because they signed Craig Counsell, whose contract had expired. And there were talks about him maybe returning back to the Brewers as manager, but he chose to move on to the Cubs. Big move for sure. Unfortunately, though, David Ross, as of now, as far as I know, is out of a job, which that sucks for him for sure. The Brewers then hired Pat Murphy as their new manager. Of course, that'll be interesting to see though how that goes, since they're definitely losing Brandon Woodruff and I think Corbin Burns as well. And of course, those pitching names were definitely something that kept the Brewers on top in one of the weaker divisions, I would say. Again, that National League Central will be interesting in 2024. I can see my Pirates possibly contending. We'll talk about them though in a very separate video, and we will. But somebody else, of course, the Pirates is very fired up. They say it's all or nothing at this point. But yeah, Craig Counsell left the Brewers, went to the Cubs, took David Ross's spot. The Diamondbacks, after, of course, getting to the World Series this year, did extend the contract of Torey Lovullo and extended him through 2026, as he most definitely deserves. Having, of course, the young talent come through. And then, of course, we had a guy like Corbin Burns, who definitely ran away with Rookie of the Year. I definitely think is basically the new face of the Diamondbacks for sure right now. The Diamondbacks are heading in the right direction. They were definitely the underdog of the playoffs, and they got to the World Series. They got something really good going in Arizona right now, and of course, keeping the man who's leading that team for sure in the dugout, most definitely signed to that extension. He well deserves. Congratulations to Torey Lovullo on that. Speaking of other extensions, the Tigers signed AJ Hinch to an extension today as well. And I guess his previous deal ran through 2025. Details were not disclosed, but I guess they're planning on having Hinch. Well, I have something in my shirt here. It's like a sticker. Yep, I didn't take that out when I first got the shirt. It was a brand new shirt I got for Christmas. But I guess they likely got AJ Hinch. I mean, yeah, he is an experienced winning manager. Yes, controversy because he was involved in fact with the Astros sign stealing scandal, but he served a suspension in 2020. He was given a second chance at the Tigers. Even though, of course, that division's weak, he got the Tigers to 76 wins this past year, so they're heading in the right direction as well. Although, of course, they lost Miguel Cabrera, even though he was very washed out for a while. But we'll see if his success continues to help build the Tigers back into a contending team as well. But no word, though, on how long his extension was for. But I guess the Tigers are willing to hold on to him for a little bit longer. So we got AJ Hinch. Then another manager getting a nice, well-deserved extension is Rob Thomson, manager for the Phillies, who came in, and the Phillies have been one of the teams that beat the past couple of years. They, of course, got to the World Series last year. Put up a great fight again this year. They definitely feel like that team that's like, they got things on track right now. They got their stacked roster. They got Bryce Harper, which we're going to talk about him briefly in another video. Apparently, Bryce Harper wants to finish his career in Philadelphia. And he wants to try to bring some other big names to Philadelphia as well. And I definitely think with Rob Thomson as manager, he's going to lead them the right way for quite a while. So definitely deserves, of course, this extension as well. His contract got extended through the 2025 season. As originally being signed through the 2024 season. But they're in good hands right now. They're in a good direction with the Phillies. They got the right people, the right pieces. They're a hot team. They have the right guy leading them in the dugout. So definitely Rob Thomson deserves his extension. But then, of course, the big news out of all this, I believe, well, besides Craig Counsell, I would say, but the big news of all is Dusty Baker announcing his retirement as the Astros general manager. And I believe it was the bench coach, Joe Espada, I believe it was, who took over as manager. But Dusty Baker did in fact announce his retirement, although he may be taking an office job with the Giants, I heard today, but it seems like managing-wise, he's done. He retired shortly after the Astros were eliminated from the postseason in an American League Championship Series, and again, the career he's had, definitely Hall of Fame worthy. He also, of course, had a 20-year playing career, and he jumped to managing, taking over the Giants in 1993. He guided the Giants to an 103-win season their first season, apparently. And, of course, he didn't get into a playoff appearance until 1997. And then he made the postseason for the Giants several times. And, of course, got to the World Series in 2002, but dropped to the Angels, unfortunately. He then moved on to the Cubs and got to the National Championship Series again, although, of course, that was during the whole Steve Bartman thing, and, we all know that story there. But I think, as far as I know, he is the only manager, I believe, in baseball history to get to back-to-back league championship series with separate teams, which I think is very rare. And then from 2008 to 2013, he was the manager for the Cincinnati Reds, winning a pair of National League Central titles. And after 2 years away from the game, he returned to the Nationals. He was there from 2016-2017 before being dismissed and replaced by Dave Martinez. And then, of course, he was away from the game for consecutive seasons, as I thought that was going to be end. But then the Astros, though, signed him after they got rid of A.J. Hinch early in 2020. So basically told that this was the last shot. Of course, he didn't have much luck going 29-31 in the shortened 2020 season, but then got back on track as well, claiming division titles every season in 2001 and 2023, and winning the World Series in 2022. The year before, he got to the World Series, but lost to the Braves, but then he won in 2022, giving him his first actual World Series victory as a manager. But yeah, so definitely a great career for Dusty Baker. Hall of Fame, I think he deserves it. So congratulations, of course, as well on a great career. And again, he may not be done with working in general, but managing, he seems to be done. But congratulations, Dusty Baker, on a great career. And with that being said, guys, that's going to do it. That is all my managerial news to catch up that I want to talk about for baseball. What are your guys' thoughts on all of this as well, especially with Dusty Baker calling it a career as manager? Make sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. And be sure, as always, also to slap a like on the video and subscribe for more content on my channel. And follow me on Twitter as well at The Club with the Man 93. You may also follow me on TikTok and Instagram at The Club with the Man 1993. And until then, guys, now checking out. I'll catch you guys all later. And do not forget, in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. And for I am the man himself. And that is not just an opinion, my friends. That is a fact of life. Yeah!